What's going on, everybody? Keith Niebuhr with Gators Online, joined by senior reporter Zach Abolverdi, who is in Austin, Texas at Darrell K. Royal Stadium, where he watched Florida play number 5 Texas this afternoon in Austin. And Zach, we're going to get your thoughts on the game and what you saw. We're going to get into some other stuff too, but just general impressions. Again, 49-17 loss for Florida. The Gators were without quarterback DJ Lagway, so obviously it was going to be an uphill battle the whole way. But what'd you think?
Yeah, it wasn't much of a contest here today. Once you knew that Florida was going to be without DJ Lagway, was going to be without several other starters, I think ended up being 14 players, 11 starters that did not play. It was going to be tough sledding for this team against the nation's number 5 team, top overall defense in the country, and they looked like it today. Gave Florida a lot of issues in the first half. Aiden Warner makes his first career start, struggles in the first quarter, and Texas jumps out to a 35-0 halftime lead, 42-0 lead early in the third quarter before they pulled Quinn Ewers for Arch Manning, and then from there they cruised to victory. The Gators did outscore them in the second half, and they had some touchdowns, and I think had a stretch where they scored on 3 of their last 4 possessions, but it was too little too late. And Florida just had too many injuries to be able to compete in this game.
All right, Zach, again, 49-17 is the final. Unranked Florida falls to number 5 Texas on the road. Just go through some statistics here. Texas, 23 first downs. Florida, 20. A lot of the 20 was in the second half. Texas with 562 total yards of offense. Florida with 329 on the surface. That doesn't look good. That's actually the most by about 40 yards that Texas has allowed all season. Again, a lot of that, however, came after Florida was already behind 35-42-0. Passing only 132 for Florida, 352 for Texas. Quinn Ewers had the first 5 touchdown game of his career at Texas, 5 touchdown passes in the game. He had done it 4 in a game, 2 times, once last year and once the season before. Texas, look, Zach, they got a really good team, but I guess what everybody kind of wants to know now is, how close was DJ Lagway to playing in this game, and is he going to be ready for next week? Is there anything you can tell us, or just your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I asked Billy about it after the game, and he said that prior to kickoff, when he went through pregame warmups, that was the best that he had felt all week. He made progress throughout the week, did some things in practice on a limited basis, but everything had kind of been gearing up to see how he would feel prior to kickoff on Saturday. And look, he went through pregame warmups and did more than I thought that he would be able to do, and kind of jogged around a little bit out there on the field. He threw the ball to receivers, but still was not in a point where they felt comfortable putting him out there without running the risk of injuring it worse. And that's certainly not what they want. This was always going to be a tough game for Florida. Even with DJ healthy, they still had so many injuries that was going to probably be too much to overcome. So the decision was made to have him sit. He didn't even come out of the locker room still dressed in uniform. And now that they hope the progress that he has made can continue into week 2, and that he'll be potentially able to play against LSU. He has a grade 2 hamstring strain, which we first reported at Gators Online. That's typically an injury that takes a few weeks to recover from. But, there is some varying degrees there depending on the severity of it. And obviously his might not be as serious as some other grade 2 strains because he tried to give it a go today. But I think that they knew all along that Aiden Warner was most likely to get this start. He took the first team reps all week.
Zach, the other development this week of significance was that Billy Napier got a vote of confidence from Florida Athletic Director Scott Strickland. And, look, a lot of people weren't crazy about that news. What did they tell you about that after the game? What did Billy Napier have to say? Because I know that was obviously brought up.
Well, he first of all gave credit to the players because he said that they are the reason why that happened. And certainly he's right because they're the ones that had shown improvement, of course, prior to today's game. But he also spoke to the players being young and that there is a lot of talent on this roster that's going to be coming back next year. I wrote about that at Gators Online as one of the reasons why Florida decided to bring him back for 2025. And he kind of hung his hat on that at the end, feeling like that's kind of what's keeping this team trending in the right direction for the future. Obviously, that didn't show up on the field today. But I asked Shamir DK and Shamar James about it as well after the game. They were both happy with the news. Shamar James felt like it was something that was needed to kind of put the players at ease, certainly put recruits at ease, and let the fans know what direction this thing was headed. So not the result that I think that they wanted to be talking about, something like that. Just the timing of it certainly is not good. But nonetheless, Florida is going to have him back, and that's something that is now kind of been decided on.
And you may not know the answer to this, Zach, but we have a lot of people asking us, what if they don't win another game? What if they end 4-8 and there's some ugliness, whatever? Is there any situation outside of something maybe off the field that could happen in life to anyone? I don't know what I'm saying there, but you know what I'm saying. But like, is there anything that could keep him from coming back? I mean, even if they lose out, is he still the coach, or did they leave the door open? Is there a chance that things could change? Well, that's a tough thing to.
I understand that in the statement it wasn't specified 2025, but if I've talked to sources close to the situation. That's the direction that they're moving. Could something alter that? I think it would have to be pretty significant, based on the way that we feel like things could be trending in recruiting. Just the fact that they might have some flips coming now that prospects know that Napier is going to be back. That should potentially put some of those recruits that may have been hesitant to commit to Florida at ease. But Florida is going to have to find a win and more than likely 2 wins so that they can get bowl eligibility. If they didn't get one and they finished the season with another 5-game losing streak, that would be tough. I don't think, though, that it would change the decision that's been made. I think one of the reasons why the decision was made is because Strickland has already felt like he's seen enough from the team and from the roster this year prior to all these injuries piling up to make him feel good about the future. Now that these injuries are here, Florida is probably going to have double-digit starters out every single week moving forward. That's not going to do a lot to change the way that he feels about the roster when it's at full capacity. Now, again, that's not going to make anybody feel better if they go to Tallahassee and lose that game. So that's one that absolutely has to happen just for the momentum going into the offseason. And I think that Florida needs to get a win in the Swamp one of these next 2 weeks as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people on Billy, the side of bringing Billy Napier back, would say, young team, let's see what he can do. There's some promise. And some other people on the other side might say, well, why don't they have more talent on the roster right now? And then also when they did have a lineup, a roster that was full early in the season, they didn't do much. So, it's like there's some yin and yang to all this. It's a calculated risk, Zach. I mean, that's why Scott Strickland makes the big money. He's got to make these tough decisions. Zach, were there any bright spots today? I mean, to me, the running game wasn't bad, 197 yards. Of course, again, they didn't all that. A lot of that came after it was already 35-0, 42-0. But Aiden Warner, kind of struggled, 12 of 25, made some decent throws, but clearly, he's not Graham Mertz or DJ Lagway, 132 yards, 2 interceptions. The defense really wasn't very good at all at any point in the game. They got the stop early, and Texas missed a field goal. But, you were hoping, I think if you're a Florida fan, Zach, that if there was leakage, it would come later. Like, hey, let's see what they can do in the first half, keep them in the game. And then, obviously if you're not scoring, not moving the ball, then things change and it gets tougher on a defense. But really the defense struggled really all the way through. But what are some of the positives? Can you take any from this game, or is it just one of those games you got to burn the video, Zach, and move on? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think they would not use the injuries as an excuse after the game, but I think that's part of the reason why they were in the predicament that they were in today. They're going to go back and watch the tape, but it's hard to compete against the nation's number 5 team when you're down that many of your best players, and that's just reality. I think there's not really a lot that you could take away from defensively to like about this performance. I guess we learned a little bit more about Florida's cornerback situation a little bit further down the depth chart and some of the issues there and some of the readiness of some of those players, because there was a lot of busted coverages and blown assignments that we saw in the secondary. So not a lot of positives. I think there were some on offense. Florida did, again, as I mentioned at the start, score 17 points in the second half and outscore Texas for the half as a whole, but also they just had 9 possessions, I think, where they only gained 130 some odd yards. And then they put together 3 scoring drives. They're late, found some success. They were able to run the ball, and it was good, I think, for Aiden Warner to have some success in this stadium against this team after a really difficult first half and first 3 quarters, because there is still the likelihood that he could start against LSU next week if DJ's not ready. So because of that, you needed him to have something to build on, to feel good about, and the fact that they were able to put some points up, I think, was a positive.
Last question was, Zach, you've got Lagway, everybody's hoping he can play. What would it mean? We know what he would mean on the field. What about just in the locker room and the psyche of this team? Because you're now starting to get to that point of the season. If he can't play against LSU and they don't beat LSU, then this is where sort of the wheels and all the injuries are mounting, and that's not making excuses. But this is kind of that potential for the wheels to come completely off. Now, some Florida fans may say, look, buddy, we're 4-5. The wheels aren't that tight to begin with. Yeah. But, what would it mean from a psychological standpoint to have DJ Lagway back, Zach?
I think it's everything. I think that was a little carrot that they were dangling throughout the week to maybe give guys hope. And I think, again, coming into this matchup against Texas, it was always going to be a tough game for Florida. But you got to come back into the swamp and feel like being at home, maybe getting Lagway back, getting some other starters back, will allow you to compete and potentially win against one of the better teams in college football, where they showed against Tennessee and Georgia that they could compete with teams of that caliber. Today, they could not. Some of that had to do with the injuries. Look, at the end of the day, Florida was playing with its third string, preferred walk-on, redshirt freshman quarterback, and that's why they struggled some of the ways that they did offensively. But they also were down several starters on defense, and that impacted things as well. If they get some of those significant players back, most notably Lagway, they're going to have a much better chance to be in a game against LSU and Ole Miss. And as I've said before, they got to find a win in one of those.
All right, Florida is now 4-5. Texas, I believe, is 8-1. The Gators have LSU, as Jack said, next week at home. Ole Miss at home the week after that, and then at FSU, which will be coming off probably a loss today to Notre Dame, which would put them at 1-9. But they do have an off week and then a game against Charleston Southern to get refreshed. So even that game could be a battle. Zach, we appreciate it. For Zach, I'm Keith Niebuhr of Gators Online. Thanks, everybody, so much for stopping by.